So welcome to Leaders Exchange. I want to thank Dr. Astri for being my first guest today, and I'd like to introduce you properly. So Dr. Frank Astri holds a bachelor's degree in Human Kinetics from the University of Ottawa and a doctorate in chiropractic from the Canadian Memorial Chiropractic College in Toronto. He completed a 3-year post-doctorate specialty in orthopedic rehabilitation at the same college. Dr. Astri studied traditional Chinese medicine and acupuncture for 2 years at the Toronto School of Traditional Chinese Medicine and is a registered acupuncturist. He recently graduated from the University of British Columbia with his master's in Rehabilitation Science. He is also enrolled in a post-doctorate residency program in sports medicine. Dr. Astri is an assistant instructor for active release techniques, ART. He has worked at Ironman Lake Placid, Ironman Mount Tremblant, and Ironman Muskoka. He has been chosen as the lead instructor for ART at Ironman Mount Tremblant, and the lead for the soft tissue management team for Ironman Muscoka. He also holds a certification as a dynamic muscular stabilization trainer. He has a vast amount of experience in treating athletes from many different sports: hockey, NHL, AHL, OHL, marathon, triathlon, ultra marathon, tennis, badminton, squash, basketball, soccer, martial arts, and track and field. Dr. Astri uses an evidence-based approach when teaching his patients. He works on optimizing a patient's movement patterns and biomechanics through various forms of manual therapy and rehabilitation. An interesting fact about Dr. Astri is prior to going to chiropractic college, he toured the US and Canada for 6 months on a motorcycle. Way to go, Dr. Astri. So welcome, and thank you for joining me today.
Well, thank you for having me first and foremost. And I look forward to being your first guest. So it should be fun.
So let's find out a bit about you, Dr. Astri. How long have you been in practice?
Well, I graduated from Canadian Memorial Chiropractic College in 2001, and we started our first practice, only practice actually, back in September of 2001. So it's been just over 19 years, so in our 20th year as we speak.
Wow, and you've done a lot in that time, Dr. Astri. Just looking at your bio, that's amazing. You're running practice and doing all this studying and all this work as well.
Time flies by, and I can't believe 19 years have gone by already. So,
well, if we had to go back and look at the beginning, and let's say you can go back in time and you're just starting out, what advice would you give yourself?
Well, I think when you graduate and when you go to school in chiropractic college, you actually get very little training in business. I think if I remember correctly, you actually only do one actual business course. So you learn a lot about diagnosis and treatment and all the things that we do on a day-to-day basis, but you actually know a little about business. So I think starting out, I would probably have done more research and more studying on the business practices, on how to run a business and how I could make the business part of a practice more efficient. And then the other thing this is something I've learned more recently, is just done some reading on how to build grit and how to build resilience and what aspects go into achieving success. So I would have probably done that more earlier on in my life in the practice world and becoming a practitioner, whereas I've tried to learn them more recently, and I wish I would have been exposed to them sooner.
Well, that's good information for people who want to go into business themselves, and they have a practice and they have all the technical knowledge, but it's the business knowledge part that they really need to bring into play, right?
Yeah. For sure.
Well, now that you've been a business owner for quite some time, and then we just had the pandemic situation, we all know that that's been challenging. What did you learn as a business owner going through the pandemic situation?
Probably the most important thing that I learned was having the right team members, and what those team members bring to a business, and how you can lean upon them, and how they put stuff forward to kind of help, to how they helped me and our business get through the lockdown, through the first few months, and how to get ready for reopening. Because we were shut down for 3 months, and we had to kind of go through a bunch of different protocols to figure out what it was going to be like once we started back up again. So having the right people was a huge thing. So that was what I learned the most, was just having the right people was a key element for moving forward through the pandemic.
Sounds like you have a really good team there.
Yeah, we're super fortunate, and our patients tell us that all the time, that when people come into the office, sure, they're here to see me, but they have an experience of being in the office, and they see the other people in the office as well, and how they help everybody move forward with their own treatment, with their own goals that they're trying to achieve. So it's not just me; it's everybody in the roles that they play. So,
that kind of leads into my next question. I'm wondering if you might relate it to that. I'm wondering if you identified any opportunities that the pandemic brought to your business.
That's a good question, because when I first think about that, there's different things that come to mind. One of the big challenges that was presented to us was, with the pandemic, we had to try and be more contactless with people, which is hard to do in a profession where everything we do is contact. So you can't really provide hands-on therapeutic chiropractic care without touching somebody. One of the neat things that we had to do in the lockdown period was we had to become virtual. So we had to come up with a way to do virtual consultation with people, so doing Zoom type meetings, and do assessment, do basically a coach-like type of exercise prescription for people, and decide whether or not that was the right thing for them. And then in the odd case, if we couldn't get them through that, we did bring them into the office as an emergency type basis. And then that led into the next part of more the business side, not business side, but the record keeping side of things for the business. Was everything was done on paper. So our college wanted us to move away from paper record keeping. So we had to research and come up with what is going to be the best sort of electronic medical records type system. So all the team members took part in looking at the different platforms and gave input, and then we came up with what is going to be the best solution for us moving forward, to give each and every practitioner in the office the opportunity to have good access to record keeping and be able to share that information, so that if a person comes to see me and then they go to see one of the other practitioners in the office, there's access for all that information to be shared. So that was a neat little platform that we had to start using, and it's been good since we started it.
That's excellent. So I'm wondering, what was the most difficult business decision that you had to make in your practice so far?
So do you mean like in the realm of the whole time I've been in business, or just more recently?
I think more recently would be interesting. Would you like, is there something else that you'd like to share, or?
I guess more recently, I'd answer it in two ways, I guess. Probably the most difficult decision overall would have been back in 2010. We actually moved our location, so physical location change, and that was to allow for growth of the practice. So at that time, it was predominantly, there was 2 chiropractors and 2 massage therapists, but we need to move to a different location so that we can accommodate having more people in the office. I was at kind of my capacity of the most amount of people that I could particularly see. So I needed to bring in an associate type partner who could then help me out to look after the patient load. So I was kind of getting a little tired and burnt out by just trying to work so many hours, seeing people. So it was good to move locations, even though it was a difficult decision and risk to do, to take on more space, take on more people, and that sort of thing. But it ended up helping the business a lot because we were able to see more people. I wasn't quite as fatigued and tired and burnt out from trying to do everything all on my own. So that worked out really, really well, although it was super difficult from a personal and family perspective to make that jump to go to be a little bit bigger. And then more recently, through the pandemic, we've had to pare things back down a little bit. So we had contracted a little bit, basically, not in terms of our physical space, because the space is still what it is. We couldn't change our space per se, but we've contracted the way in which we're doing things. So everything's kind of more of a slower pace, taking a little bit more time to do things and we had to figure out how those processes would work to still be somewhat efficient and profitable enough to at least continue to be open. So
it sounds to me like the logistics of going from small to big and then back to kind of having some constraints.
Yeah, placed upon us.
What really was challenging is all the logistics involved, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So what advice then would you give to other business owners today?
I think I'd go back to what I wish I would have learned early on in practice. And probably the most important thing, I think, is trying to figure out as a business owner, but as just a person in general, is what is the science of success and what are those properties, and the psychological part of it, the neurophysiological part of it is what makes a person successful and what makes a business successful. So if you could try to start to learn those things and emulate them and put those principles in practice into your daily life, then you'll be successful personally as well as professionally.
So you really recommend a two-pronged approach, making sure that successful as a person, successful as a business as well.
Correct.
Excellent. That's good to know. Thank you. I want to pick your brain a bit and drawing on your knowledge and experience as a healthcare practitioner. What advice would you give to people to stay healthy?
I think there's a few things that come to mind with that. And these are probably in no particular order, except for the last one, which I'll say, which I would put as probably the most important. First and foremost, we have to try and manage our stress levels as people and as business people. And there's different ways that you can do that. You can do yoga, you can do meditation, or make some changes or decisions in your life that allow you to manage those stress levels. So if you've got a lot of things on your plate, maybe you need to be looking at, hey, how can I adjust or readjust or change things that will make my stress levels a little bit better. Sleep is important, obviously. We need to make sure that we're getting adequate sleep. If we're not getting adequate sleep, then we're not recovering well. We're not, good spouses and parents and co-workers and business runners. And we need to make sure we have good food in our day-to-day routine with our diet, because you need energy, and energy comes from food. You have to have proper food, and you have to have proper sleep. And I think the last one, which I think is most important, is we need to move on a regular basis. We need to exercise. From a healthcare practitioner side, I think that's, to me, is one of the most important, because if we do that and we do regular physical activity, it does help with our stress. It helps manage our stress levels. It does help us sleep better. And It helps prevent disease, and it helps decrease the amount of pain and injuries that people have if they are on exercise on a regular basis.
It's funny when you were talking about making sure that you have good sleep. I thought of my Apple Watch that tracks my sleep. Then when you talked about moving regularly, I think of my Apple Watch that makes me get up every hour on the hour stand. Yes. I get up every hour and I move and I do just to get my point, right?
Yep.
So, and then with regards to the stress, I think I have a positive intelligence program that I do that really helps form a positive mindset for people and helps them reduce their stress levels. So yeah, I totally was like tick, 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 all those things. The food I could do a bit better on, but we're working on it.
We can always be better in all those areas. And I always, talk about it with either people in the office or with my own family, my wife and my kids. All of this stuff is a journey, and you'll have ebbs and flows. Sometimes you're going to be really good. Sometimes you might be not quite as good. But long as you're continuing to move up in the proper direction, that's all we can ever ask for from ourselves and from others that we're close with. So just trying to strive to be better.
Definitely. I agree with you.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, is there a question that you wish I would have asked you in this interview that I haven't asked?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I think you hit some pretty good points along the way through the questions. Yeah, I don't think that I wish you would have asked anything else, to be honest with you.
So I did a pretty fine job?
I think you did a great job.
Oh, thanks. Well, I just really would like to thank you so much for being my first guest, Dr. Astri, and I'm looking forward to having you on another time because this was very informative and we can learn quite a lot from you. And I'm sure many business owners have benefited from the information you've shared today. So thank you.
No problem. Thank you. It's been my pleasure and my honor to be part of it. So I appreciate you taking the time to interview me. It's been fun.
You're welcome. Thank you.